You're listening to the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast, episode 82. My predictions of what assessment and exam questions will and won't look like for your teen this year, including what no question will ever ask, even though lots of students try to answer it, what proportion of mark schemes are directly related to subject content, and what else is on them that your teen needs to focus on just as much, and the chief examiner feedback that repeats every year, and how your teen can use it to learn from others' mistakes. Plus, 2 questions to consider or discuss with your teen that'll help them take a more strategic, confident, and ultimately successful approach to their study. I'm Katie Jones, and with over 15 years in education as an award-winning high school teacher, international external examiner, and as a study coach, I've helped thousands of students skyrocket their results and confidence. And this podcast is where I share all my insights, tactics, and tips with you, the parent, so you can help your hardworking teen get happy, smart, and successful in their study, and have you both enjoy the journey along the way. This is the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast. Hello, very important parents and carers. I hope your week is going brilliantly so far. I am a little bit on fire right now because I've just gotten off the Facebook Live Super Session, a special extended class to kick off the year. And I'm going to share the main parts of it here on the podcast. But if you do want to watch the full class and get all of the visuals and the Q&A, and I also posted links to all of the sources that I reference in the comments underneath the video as well, then you can go find it on the Rock Solid Study Facebook page under the videos tab. And just like last year, I'm going to be running a free live tips and Q&A session every month on the Facebook page on the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So definitely follow the Facebook page to get in on those. But right now, let's get straight into this because I do give an introduction on the session and it is going to be a bit longer than my usual podcast episodes. So here you go, my 3 bold assessment predictions and what they mean for your teen. 3 big, bold predictions, make sure I can get that in, for 2024 and honestly beyond, because I don't see these things changing anytime soon. Let me tell you, many of these things were true when I was a student and I made all of the mistakes that I'm going to talk to you about as well. Okay, let's get into things because I've got a lot I want to share with you this evening. As I've already mentioned, this is a super session. Now, each month I go live on Facebook, I deliver some insights, some bonus tips, and I open up Q&A so that you can ask me any questions you'd like about your teen study. Or if you're a student here, then you can ask me any questions you'd like about your study. And I am here to serve for free and give you as much help as possible. Now, if you have not met me before or you're new to this world, I'm Katie Jones. I've been a high school teacher for coming up 18 years now. And I won a national teaching award in the UK. That's where I started my teaching career. I taught for 4 years there before moving over to Australia. I've taught in multiple states, multiple private and public schools. No, I won't say throughout Australia because I've not taught everywhere. But what I have also done is done an awful lot of work with external exam boards, including external exam marking, scrutiny panel member, writing panel member, coursework moderation, and there's probably a few other bits and pieces in there as well, for a variety of different exams, for a variety of different exam boards. And I will tell you, it was that experience that has really led me to trying to help more and more students and give awareness to more and more parents in the ways that assessment works, where I see students not achieving their potential, and all of the skills and the tools and the strategies and the techniques that mean that they will be able to achieve their potential, that mean that they will get the marks that match their effort and their ability. So those are really the types of students and parents that I serve. The students and their parents who are working hard. They're already doing everything that they're told to by their teachers. They're doing their homework and they're studying hard. But that hard study is either not necessarily turning into results. Maybe they're getting results that feel disappointing for them, whatever disappointing for them is. Or maybe they're getting great results, but they are having to study all hours to get them. I know that you may not necessarily be really in the mood for thinking about getting back to school right now, but I assure you I have all of the motivation, energy, and enthusiasm for all of us. So you can count on me. I am here delivering the goods. Here's what I want to share with you. I want to share with you 3 predictions about your teen's study, assessment, exams, and how this whole game of academics in high school, particularly in years 9 to 12 or 10 to 13, depending on your teen's school year, how they really work. Based on, yes, high school teaching, but also based on all of my experience sort of behind the curtain in terms of assessment, coursework, moderation, and particularly external exams. All right. The reason I want to share these predictions is because I want to increase the awareness and give you some tactical information as well to be able to increase your team's marks, their grades, their results, and boost their confidence. Because I know some students might be getting great grades, but they're still not necessarily, confident in how to do it. And often that confidence impacts how long things are taking, their motivation levels, maybe procrastination, being focused, being productive. They're sometimes doing what I call productive procrastination, which is doing lots of things, and I'm going to get to this later, lots of things that are busy and feel productive, but aren't necessarily translating into results. I want them to also help your teen avoid the stress, the struggle, the confusion, sometimes the disappointment, the deflation, the loss of self-confidence that happens when it doesn't all go to plan, when sometimes these things are missing. What would you like to have change for your teen this year? Is it you'd like to see their results increase? Not because you as the parent are like, they have to get A grades, but because you know what that means to them. And you'd like it to be a way to boost maybe their self-confidence, their pride, their determination, their self-belief. Maybe open up more opportunities for them. Maybe it's more about that self-confidence and that mindset. Is it reducing their levels of stress, confusion, the amount of hours that they're working? For those of you who've been with me for a little while, there's going to be 1 or 2 things that maybe you've kind of heard me talk about before, but you might either hear it in a slightly different way, and that will be helpful, or it might just be a refresher, and it's so helpful sometimes to have these things that we go, oh my goodness, I know that, or I knew that, and it needs to be top of mind again. Now, this leads beautifully onto my first point that I want to make, and this really is what underpins the whole of this session, okay? And I want to use this analogy. I've used this for students before. I talk about their study bucket. Now, let's be real. Every one of us has a study bucket that is going to vary in shape and size. It's going to vary probably for different subjects for all of us, okay? Some of us have more interest, more natural talent in certain things than others, and that's okay. But what I want to do is have your teen maximize, optimize their own study bucket. Because here's what I see so many students doing. They are turning that tap on. They are working so hard to fill that bucket with water, with marks, if you like, with correct answers, with knowledge, okay? They're working so hard. They are turning that tap on and filling it up. But you can see what's happening. They are literally leaking marks out of the bottom of the bucket. And it doesn't matter. They're just going to try and work harder and harder and harder, but it is not going to fix the leak. And I actually use the analogy, it kind of ties in with the water theme, of a hose pipe. And, let's say we're trying to wash the car and the hose pipe has a kink in it. And it's probably got a few kinks in it. And what that's doing is it's stopping that hose pipe or the water from operating at its true capacity. It has the capacity to go at 100%, but maybe it's operating at 80%, 40%. And all we need to do, we don't need to change the hose pipe, we don't need to turn the tap on harder, we don't need to have them working harder and harder, staying up later and later. What we need is to get rid of the kinks in the hose. And that's what I hope these predictions that I'm going to share with you will help do for you and for your team. Okay, so we don't want more water, we don't want harder and harder work if they're already doing, you know, what they need to be doing, which a lot of students are. We want to plug the holes that very often they don't even realize are there. They don't even realize that they've got that leaky bucket. Okay, here is prediction number one. You ready for this, folks? Prediction number one. I want to share with you what, I hope you can see this well enough. Is this showing up well enough? Okay, what no question, this is my prediction for 2024, and let's be honest, it's going to be 2025 and most likely beyond, what no question is ever going to ask your team. No exam question is going to ask it, no essay question is going to ask it, no assignment, research inquiry is going to ask it, and I'm going to come back to that third point in a second. No question is going to ask your team, write everything you know about topic X. No question will ever ask that. And yet, so many students are essentially studying and even responding to questions and writing assignments as if that is the question. They're trying to learn more and more and more subject content, thinking that that's going to be the key to great grades. And it is part of it, but it is not all of it. And I want to mention this whole thing about research assignments, because even that word, research or inquiry, it makes us think that it's about finding out information. And to some extent it is. But when you think about it, every research project, every inquiry task, the title or the inquiry question is never find out all the information you possibly can about this topic. And what starts to happen is, this is why students get bogged down and really overwhelmed with trying to do all the research, trying to find all the information, because what they're probably trying to do is put in more information than they need to. Partly because they think that's what they need to do, partly because we want to try and impress the marker. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Partly because we've worked so hard to learn the information and it is going on that page. I'm raising my hand for that one. I definitely did that. I didn't just talk about topic X. I also threw in a bit of Y and Z as well on my answers as a student. And the other thing that happens going over time, that's also what happens then in exams under time conditions. We're trying to write so much because we think or we hope that that's going to get us more marks. And like I said, the tricky one definitely is those research inquiry tasks, because it sounds like we want to just be collecting information. So if that's, what they're not going to say, what are they going to say instead? We've got questions that begin with words like this. Name, state, they would be some of the basics. They probably would be factual information. But here's the little thing that I see happening for students with these sorts of questions is they end up putting more in than is required. And part of this is going to be, can we get your team confident enough that they know what the question is asking, that they're confident to leave out information that they know isn't required. If your team is a hedge your bets kind of person, again, raising my hand, they're putting in more information than they need just in case. Totally get it. I was that student as well. They're also going to see questions like this, especially in those higher year levels. How does? Discuss. Who loves a discuss question? Oh my goodness. That makes it sound like just discuss all of the information around this topic, right? We can see why students go down these avenues. We can see why this happens. It is not your team's fault if this is what they are thinking. I'll tell you the other reason it's not their fault is because of syllabus documents. You look at the curriculum, you look at the exam board syllabus dot points, it's all around subject content. And absolutely, as it should be, but there is this whole other realm of having them understand, well, what do I do with that information? How do I apply, I like the word apply, the information in the way that's required and the mark scheme demands. How does? Discuss, everyone's favorite. And the other favorite is to what extent? These are those big meaty questions, often essay questions, sometimes 20-mark questions on an exam. And they feel daunting and they feel overwhelming. And they often bring up a lot of problems, overwhelm, and I'll be honest, mistakes that students make when they don't know how to deal with those questions. So the first thing is be aware. It does not mean write everything you know about the topic. Okay. Prediction number two. Prediction number two. What no mark scheme will ever say. what no mark scheme will ever say. So we know the question isn't going to ask about everything you know about, so you can probably start to get where I'm going with this one. What no mark scheme will ever say is top marks gives the most amount of information about, bottom marks gives a little bit of information about, and it's just a scale of information. That is not how mark schemes work. It is not maximum, it's not 30 marks for 30 facts or pieces of info. Okay, now I know that we kind of know this. I know that this isn't, groundbreaking. P.S. If you were hoping that I was going to give predictions of literally like what's going to be on, the waste bio exam this year, that's not happening. A, of course, not allowed to. I never share anything I'm not allowed to. This is all stuff I'm allowed to share. B, I don't know. And C, this is the most important part. Students don't need to rely on that sort of thing, knowing exactly what's going to come up on the paper, when they are confident and they have the skills to know. It doesn't matter what question comes up. I will be able to dissect that question. I will know what it's asking me, and I know how to apply the knowledge that I have learned and revised actively, and I can have it flow from brain to paper and put it across in the way that mark scheme demands. That is like superpower. Way beyond getting a sneak peek at what the questions are going to be. So no mark scheme is going to say just writes all the information possible about. They're never going to be asked to, okay, give me every fact about Romeo and Juliet. All the characters, what happens. They're never going to have to write about that. They're never going to have to write every fact about the function of the kidneys and the structure of the kidney. They're never going to need to write about that. But I want to raise two scenarios, circumstances, situations that have probably arisen for your team that bring up a little bit of conflict and have made this maybe a little bit difficult, and maybe the reason that they've sometimes fallen into this trap. And it's that in all of the year groups, up till I would say definitely year 7, maybe year 8, I'm sure it happens in primary school. I've never taught primary school, but I'm sure it happens. I remember it happening for me when I was a student. We get awarded, we get recognized, we get gold stars, smiley faces, lovely postcards home, lots of praise when we go over and above. So when I talk about impressing the marker, we do that in those lower year groups by doing, the beautiful front cover, going over and above what is asked, putting in loads of information, showing how many hours we've spent researching. We get credited for that. And of course, there's a reason for that. We want to instill a good work ethic. We want students to take pride in their work. We want that. But here's where things flip. In the upper year groups of high school, I can tell you, mainly, honestly, as a teacher, we still want to commend students for, putting in extra effort and going over and above. But as an assessor, as an examiner, the stuff that really knocks my socks off, makes me go, oh my goodness, this is an amazing answer, that really lights me up, gets me excited, makes me take photos of exemplars, is the answer or the response or the essay that absolutely nails the question, fulfills the criteria really clearly, succinctly, without extra waffle, with no extra info, no added fluff. That's what sets us on fire when we get to those higher year levels. I often do challenges and teach a concept of most marks, least words. It's the most marks, least words challenge. How can we get, when I sometimes see it, and a student will, even a 3-mark answer, and they'll manage to nail it in one short sentence. They've covered the exact bases, whether they meant to or not. But when I see that, I'm like, oh, that is magic. But that change is quite a flip to happen for the student. No one sits them down and says, right, just so you know, extra stuff not needed anymore. Stick to knowing exactly what's being asked and how do I give that in the clearest, most succinct, most focused, direct way. That's the magic when it gets to those higher year groups, and knowing how to meet the criteria on the mark scheme. So this is, these are the parts that I love. I've got a couple of mark schemes to share with you. Now, I don't expect you to be able to read these, but what I am going to do, now I'm not going to do this on the live session because I don't want you clicking on stuff and going away and getting distracted. But I am going to put these into the comments on the Facebook page so that they stick around afterwards. I'm going to share the links of where I got this from, okay? So this is the 2023 HSC Business Studies exam. So I want to show you short response question mark schemes and extended response. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk through all of this. I'm going to keep it very short, very clear, and hopefully very useful. Here's what I want you to see. Yellow. Yellow is anything to do with information. So that whole thing of learning information, putting down information, yes, you're going to get 1 mark out of 2, 1 mark out of 3. It literally says provides some relevant information. So again, if your team just isn't sure, or if they've just written a whole load of information, they're going to get a mark. It's not like they're not going to get a mark, they're just not going to get optimal marks. They're not going to hit the top criteria. 2 marks describes the benefits of achieving economies of scale. 3 marks explains the benefits. So states information, describes, explains. 3 different levels of response, 3 different ways of writing, conveying, applying their knowledge. Provides some relevant information, outlines a potential issue, different to stating information. 1 mark given for information. Notice this is the point I really want to make. It does not say provides some relevant information. It doesn't say provides a fair bit of information and provides loads of information. Provides some, describes, explains. Not provides some, provides a lot, provides loads. That's not how the mark schemes work. It's not 1 piece of information, 2 pieces of information, 3 pieces of information. That's what I want to make really clear. A lot of students see it like that. You ready for this one? Take a deep breath. I promise I'm going to make this really painless. This is from the International Baccalaureate. It's a high-level English essay rubric, okay? Rubric, mark scheme, marking guide, success criteria, it's the same thing. The yellow, I'm a fan of color coding. The yellow is on the whole of this sheet of success criteria. The yellow is what directly relates to the student's knowledge and understanding of their text. So let's say it's Romeo and Juliet. Let's say it's a movie they studied. Let's say it's a poem they studied, whatever it might be. It literally, criterion A says knowledge, understanding, and interpretation. So even that isn't just knowledge and understanding. So we've got the yellow. How well does the candidate demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the work or text chosen? And it does also talk about references from the work or the text. So they also obviously need to be able to find those. That's all knowledge of the text. Yay for that. But they've also got to make use of the knowledge to draw conclusions in relation to the topic. They've got to analyze and evaluate. They've got to have a focused, organized, and developed piece of writing. So they've got to think about the points they want to make, how they connect, how they link, how they contribute to their argument or perspective. And then they've got to have excellent quality of communication and language. Out of all of that, the information about the text is only a relatively limited section. They've got to be able to do so much with it in order to hit the criteria or more of the criteria. Like they could score a 5 here for knowledge and understanding, but are they going to hit a 5 in all of these other areas? And even is this whole drawing conclusions and connecting that to the, the chosen topic and draw conclusions about it? Draw conclusions, is that kind of answering the question? Is it actually answering the question? They could even drop down there. So again, awareness. Awareness is the first step, right? Okay, third prediction. Let's have a look at the last one. So this is my third prediction. Here's what I predict. What no teacher or examiner is going to be heard saying this year. This one's a little bit risky. I predict that no teacher or examiner is going to be stood around in the staff room on the coffee break saying, oh my goodness, they haven't been great in class, but my goodness, they have nailed that exam. Here's what I usually hear said. Oh my goodness, they get it in class. Why can't they do it in the exam? That's what I tend to hear. In fact, don't tend to hear, I hear it really often. I hear it in the staff rooms with the teachers that are teaching the students, and I hear it with the examiners when we're doing exam marking, and we're like, oh my goodness, if they just written it this way, or if they just made that link, or if they just then put this final sentence that actually showed that it answered the question, it would have made all the difference. So here's what I see instead. This is, I'm going to put in the link for this as well. This is from the NCEA. This is from, is it English? Yeah, English. I had to remind myself. This is from the chief examiner report. Okay, so if you haven't ever been found chief examiner reports for your teen's study, then every year for every single exam paper in every exam board, literally every single different paper, there is a chief examiner report. Sometimes it is called a retrospective. Oh, there's another name for it as well, which I can't think of off the top of my head. But this is where they literally review, okay, what happened in that exam? How did the students go? Where were they missing marks that they probably could have, should have been getting? What's the recommendation to teachers and students for the future? However, how many students and teachers actually read these reports? I can tell you, very few. I don't think that a lot of them know that they exist. Okay, no, I'm not talking negatively of anyone here. It's just that we don't know what we don't know. Okay, if we don't know that they're there and we don't know what's gold's inside them, of course we don't even know to go and look for them. Okay, so yellow again. Let me share with you a couple of statements that absolutely jumped out at me from just this. This is just one response to one of the questions on this paper. Okay, can you imagine how much gold is in these? Every single year, every single paper. This one says, unfortunately, some candidates appear to be likely, this made me laugh. Well, it didn't make me laugh, it made me smile. I shouldn't laugh. Likely repackaging material. The reason it made me smile is because it made me think of like report speak when we say like, well, they're very lively and they have a lot of strong opinions on a report. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. They're regurgitating information. They're retelling me facts. They're retelling me what happens in the novel. Okay? Which tends to result in a general response of dubious relevance to the statements. Hate to speak, they're not really answering the question. Dubious relevance to the statement, not answering the question. Perfectly factually correct information, not answering the question. Down here, many responses were overlong. They're putting in loads of info. They're putting in lots of, like, sometimes it might disintegrate, maybe into the waffle and the repetition, but maybe they're just putting in lots and lots of great info. But it's not all needed because it's not relevant to the question. Often a product of redundant evidence, e.g. plot recall. And this is another good bit. Consequently, some candidates demonstrated breadth of knowledge. So they've got loads of knowledge. We're not saying, hey, look, they just don't know their stuff. They've got breadth of knowledge at the expense of depth. At the expense of depth. They're not going into analysis. It's that whole, you know, when you get the feedback, add more detail, give more detail, go further. It's that. Knowledge at the expense of depth. Pink, flip side, how we want to flip this. Candidates who convert this into a structured argument are likely to achieve well. Changing the emphasis has the potential, the emphasis from breadth to depth, has the potential to enhance achievement in all three standards. So if we're thinking about a rubric like this, absolutely, I can tell you from marking, you know, writing tests and things like that, yes, it has the potential to lift them across multiple strands in the marking guide. So I hope this has been helpful. I want you to have well, I don't want you to. I wanted to share with you a couple of questions that hopefully will make this, you know, actionable and actually useful, because it's one thing to sort of, you know, hear it and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it's another thing to obviously take action and have this actually make a difference for you and your teen and how you support your teen and how they go this year. So I thought I would share with you a couple of questions. So my first question is, where are they spending time and energy on low ROE, return on effort? So we think of return on investment, return on effort activities. Where are they putting in time and energy that you suspect isn't going to give them much bang for buck? It isn't going to plug those holes in the bucket. It's maybe not, it's like putting in a lot of energy, but it's not even really filling up that bucket very much. Where can we now think that that might be happening? The most obvious one that I think back to from my years at high school is things like, you know, making a pretty front cover. That's like a real cliche sort of basic answer. Like there is never, here's another one. There's never going to be a marking criteria that says has a beautiful front cover. Unless of course they are like their product has been in its art and design. But even then it wouldn't say beautiful. It would say, you know, uses a variety of techniques to achieve a certain outcome, you know, a certain message or theme. Okay. It's never going to say that. So where are they spending time and energy on low ROE, return on effort activities? Last question for you. What aren't they doing? So what isn't your team doing, or what are they not aware of that they actually need to be? What are they not doing? What are they not even necessarily aware of? Remember, we don't even realize that we're dripping marks out of the bottom of the bucket that they actually probably need to be. So this is just something that then you can think about, okay, like, can we go away and start figuring this out? Can we go get some chief examiner reports? Can we get the training to be able to do that? Can we go and figure out can we even start to identify what those leaky holes are?
Okay, those are my predictions, insights, and a few tips and things to consider going forwards for this year. I hope that there was at least one thing that you either learned or was a good refresher to keep top of mind. And like I said, you can find the full video version, including my feedback and all the visuals and the Q&A that I hosted afterwards on the Facebook page. It's www.facebook.com/Rock Solid Study, all one word. And if you want to come to a future Facebook Live free tips and Q&A session, then be sure to follow that page. And if you want to get notifications and official invites, then you will get that if you are on my email list. You can get on there when you request the free parent guide on the Rock Solid Study website. I will put all the direct links to those in the show notes of this episode. So if you're listening to this on your phone, scroll down to the show notes and you can get direct links to those rather than trying to type all of that in. In the meantime, I hope you have a brilliant rest of your week. I will take this opportunity to wish you and your team a very happy and successful year ahead. And I will see you back here next week for another episode. See you then. Bye. If you're ready to have your team achieve their best possible results with less stress, then I want to invite you to enroll them in the 10-week Grade Transformation Program, where they're going to learn the key concepts, skills, and strategies to catapult their performance in assessments and exams. It's risk-free. They either achieve bigger and better results with a whole lot more confidence in 10 weeks, or we refund you in full. Just head over to www.rocksolidstudy.com/program, and I'll see you there.